do want to give my quick thoughts on the Full Gear pay-per-view from last weekend, which I thought overall was a very good show. Not AEW's best pay-per-view by any means of 2024. But for as lackluster as the weekly shows are for AEW, they do a very good job with the pay-per-views. I've said this for weeks now. In my various rants on Dynamite and how cold the product feels currently, they do a great job with the pay-per-views, and this show is no exception. Now, the overall pre-show, per usual, was pretty much throwaway, up until the Big Boom AJ, yes, that's his ring name, the Costco guy, AJ from TikTok, taking on QT Marshall. That match, honestly, was not only the sole highlight of the pre-show, the 0-hour pre-show. It was one of the, not the only highlights of the entire pay-per-view. I don't want to go that far, but it was easily when the crowd was at their hottest. And I was one of those people, when I first saw this shit on TikTok, Twitter, whatever, I mean, it started on TikTok, I believe. I'm not really on TikTok. I just saw it, on my Twitter timeline not too long ago over the summer. I thought it was the dumbest fucking thing. It is pretty fucking stupid. They review, the cookies, the double chunk chocolate cookie from the Costco and the chicken bacon, shit like that. It's incredibly stupid, but they do have a social media following. AEW is wise to kind of tap into that and put them on the show, including, his son, Big Justice, and the Rizzler, who's his own character in his own right, this fucking, overweight 8-year-old kid, but, he's over. He was more over than 80% of the people on the show, if not more. So I don't know what that says about him. I don't know what that says about the company itself, the product, whatever. But it made for a fun time on the pre-show. This was better than it had any right to be. And we found out a couple of days later, actually, that AJ actually broke his foot in the match and still finished the match. So he has wrestling roots. He did wrestle on the indie scene 20 plus years ago, came back for another match a few years ago, I believe. And so this was his first real match in a very long time. And I thought he fared well for himself. And QT Marshall, no real fan of QT Marshall here, but I thought he did really well in his own right, in his role, in his respective role, and kind of hyping up AJ and making him look good, selling for AJ, eliciting heel heat, that sort of stuff. I thought he did a really good job. And the match itself, I honestly had a fun time with on the pre-show. The main card, I thought, had its, overall was very good. I wouldn't call this one of the more must-see shows of AEW that they've put on this year, as I mentioned earlier, but overall, I would call it a very good show. The tag team title match saw Private Party retain their championships in a fatal four-way tag team match against the Acclaimed, the Outrunners, the Kings of the Black Throne, that being Malachi Black and Brody King of the House of Black. The match itself was pretty standard stuff. We've seen far better tag team matches in AEW. This was kind of just on the card to get the titles defended on the card, but it was fine for what it was. The thing worth noting from this match was the tension teased between the Acclaimed, Max Caster and Anthony Bowens. We'll see where it goes. I wouldn't even necessarily break them up. I mean, the team itself needs some sort of a change, so whether it's a split or a heel turn, I would... a heel turn would be fine too. They would pretty much be in the same spot, mind you. I don't know how much more interesting they would be as heels compared to as baby faces. They were heels for a couple of years before they turned babyface in 2022. But something's got to change, whether it be a split, a heel turn, whatever. Kicking Billy Gunn to the curb, the whole scissoring shtick got old a very long time ago. So I thought that was a positive, refreshing change of pace to see them actually tease something different. We'll see where they go with it. MJF beating Roderick Strong, probably the least important MJF pay-per-view match I have ever seen. It was a well-worked match. It was perfectly fine for what it was. This probably should have opened the show, to be perfectly honest with you. I know MJF opened the show back at Forbidden Door. He faced Roosh on that show. That was a better match than this. At least the crowd was more into it because MJF was in his hometown of Long Island. This crowd could not have given two fucks. MJF had to get on the mic before the match started to kind of get the crowd booing him because he got a very positive reaction when he came out, but he's supposed to be the heel in the storyline. So far he's not, and he hasn't really come across like one, but he's supposed to be portrayed as the heel in the story. So he had to get on the mic, shit on the crowd, do the typical bashing of the local, town, whatever thing. His usual shtick. More than usual, though, did he ham it up. And the actual match was fine. MJF winning decisively as he should have before he could attack Roderick afterward. I think he actually did attack Roderick, and then Adam Cole came out with the rest of the Undisputed Kingdom. So again, Adam Cole just a terrible fucking friend, apparently. It's hard to care about any of this. I know they're saving MJF and Adam Cole for probably World's End next month. And I thought that was a smart call because MJF wasn't on TV to kind of build up the match and, have those promo exchanges, discussing their feud, discussing the bad blood. They only did the pre-tape shit, which was kind of lame. So this was fine, but it was a glorified Dynamite match, glorified Dynamite main event. It wasn't anything special. Didn't really need to be on the show, but I understand wanting to get MJF on the show, so whatever. Mercedes Moné having probably one of, if not her best match in all of AEW so far, against Chris Statlander for the AEW TBS Championship. I thought they had a very, very good match. Mercedes hasn't had all duds for matches in AEW. The Britt Baker match was a dud. The Sheeta match was disappointing back at All Out. So she really hasn't had like a truly great match in a while. Probably since the Stephanie Vakir match back at Forbidden Door, for the where she defended the TBS Championship and won the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. So it's been a while, but she reminded people of what she's capable of here. And as they wrote the other day for Bleacher Report, I feel like more great matches like this and strong showings for Moné will go a long way, no rhyme intended, in getting her kind of like aura back. And I know that word aura is overused nowadays with social media and whatnot, but she's lost a lot of that luster that she once had in AEW. And just in general, she really hasn't felt special since she arrived in AEW. She did initially for a few months, and then the booking out of the gate kind of sucked, and the matches haven't always been great. Her character / mic work has been subpar. So more stuff like this is what makes her special. Give us more of these, please. Give us more matches like this. Statlander also having a stellar showing. She had a great match last month, or 2 months ago rather, with Willow Nightingale at All Out. That was back when she was a heel, turning back into a babyface soon after for no real fucking reason at all. But we did get a great match out of this, and I thought it was really good for what it was. Jay White, I thought, would lose to Adam Page on the show. I thought Page would avenge the loss and, get back on track after beating Swerve Strickland at All Out a few months ago. But no, Jay White went, I don't want to say 2-0 against White or against Adam Page, because he did lose to him in the Owen Hart Cup a few months back. He's also beaten him before in Ring of Honor or New Japan or in, I think they had a match on Dynamite about a year ago as well, and he won that too. But this was another really good match. I thought the other match they had at Wrestle Dream was better, just because of the hotter crowd and it kicked off the show. But this was good. I enjoyed this for what it was as well. And White went over clean decisively, which would make sense with what we saw at the end of the show. Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay had the best match of the entire night. I was not a fan of the constant kickouts and even the Tombstone Piledriver being used as like a setup move. He hit that to Ospreay on the outside on top of steel steps. And I think he pinned him or hit another move after that in the ring and only got a 2 count. That was fucking stupid. The rest of the match I thought was really, really good. Fletcher winning clean was the real top takeaway for me. It would have been very easy for Fletcher to cheat to win, or Ospreay, even at the very least, which is what I expected, Ospreay to win with Fletcher making him look great in defeat, a strong showing in defeat. But that can only go so far. When you've had that happen in almost every single one of your matches, and you can never really win when it matters most, but always look good in defeat, you're just a loser at that point. So at some point, you gotta win. And he won here. He won without any interference whatsoever. Don Callis was at ringside. No screwdriver bullshit. No interference from other members of the group. Nothing. Fletcher just won decisively as he should have. I thought that was a big win for Kyle Fletcher. A real, coming out party, so to speak. Hopefully, if they can follow up on it, that's the key. I know he's in the Continental Classic. More on that later. I don't think he's going to win that. Maybe maybe him and Ospreay run it back in the finals of the Continental Classic, and that's where Ospreay gets his win back. But this was a massive win for Fletcher for now, so I thought that was really, really good. This wasn't a match, but they did have a champagne toast with Mariah May, the AEW Women's World Champion, and Mina Shirakawa. And Mariah, as we all kind of expected, was about to turn on Mina. Mina saw it coming, or at least dodged it, and then tackled her through a table. So I thought it was a nice twist, because everyone expected May to attack Mina, and then for that to be it. But Mina was actually smart and dodged it. I don't know if it was a case of her being smart, or Mariah May just being stupid. She wanted to wait until Mina turned around to attack her with the beer bottle instead of just hitting her from behind like as she should have. That was dumb. But this does set up a match between them for the Women's World Championship at some point, probably at World's End, so I like that a lot. We finally have a new AEW TNT champion in Daniel Garcia. A good match here, more storytelling based. The crowd wasn't really overly into it until the end, but they were behind Garcia throughout. A great win for Garcia, finally a singles champion in AEW. I know he was a Ring of Honor Pure champion, but, that doesn't really mean much in the overall grand scheme of things in AEW. So I thought this was good. The right outcome, too, because you could have had Perry win, continue the feud, have Garcia win it at a later date. That would have been dumb. He was another guy a lot like Fletcher who had to win when it mattered most. And he finally did at the pay-per-view on Saturday, so I thought that was well done. Konosuke Takeshita beating Ricochet to retain the AEW International Championship was a good match, not a great match. It was fun, but it was far from the best match of the entire show. This kind of felt like it was just there, and I don't know if it was a case of the crowd being exhausted because it was so late in the show or what. They just added this to the pay-per-view a few days ago on Twitter. I know they've been building to it for a while, but they should have announced it earlier than they did. This did mark Ricochet's first clean singles loss, his first singles loss at all in AEW, actually. So we'll see where he goes from here, aside from the Continental Classic coming up, did kick off last night, actually, on Dynamite. A good win for Takeshita, though. Bobby Lashley beating Swerve Strickland in a very good match. Bobby Lashley's win was decisive. And I had seen some comments about Swerve being made to look, weak in defeat with the way that he was portrayed and tapped out or passed out quickly, which I would agree with. But beyond that, though, he doesn't really lose a whole lot. He's a former AEW World Champion. He's still really over. Now, he has lost. This did mark his third straight loss on pay-per-view. He lost to Bryan Danielson at All In. He lost to Adam Page at All Out. He lost this match. He didn't wrestle at WrestleDream. So this was his third pay-per-view match since All In. And he lost this one, too. So at some point, he will have to battle back and kind of avenge the loss. He probably will at some point. Hopefully not at the expense of Bobby Lashley. But I thought this was more important for Bobby to win his pay-per-view in-ring debut for AEW than it was for Swerve to win here and kind of avenge the losses from pay-per-view in recent months. So I thought this was really good, though. And then the main event, Jon Moxley beating Orange Cassidy to retain the AEW World Championship. They had a very good match. They've always had great chemistry. The build was very boring, very bland, very generic. Viewers, I don't think, had any reason to think that Cassidy would actually win, and he did not. The crowd did get really into some of the near falls down the stretch. They were really into Cassidy nearly winning at a few different points. It did not happen. We had more the Death Riders interference down the stretch, and that was how Jon Moxley won with an assist from Wheeler Yuta. So the finish was lame, but the actual match was really good. It wasn't like pay-per-view main event quality, but I thought it was a very good match. Moxley, as we all expected, still the AEW World Champion. So there was a whole lot of fucking chaos that closed the show with Christian Cage attempting to cash in his guaranteed title shot with an assist from Adam Page. And that did seem random. Like, why the fuck is Adam Page out here? And it was because, I guess, Adam Page, like Christian Cage, had helped Adam Page a while ago with something. They had like a soft alliance a few weeks ago on Dynamite. Blink and you missed it, I know. But they were briefly aligned at one point on Dynamite coming into this pay-per-view. So maybe the deal was that Page, if he helped Christian win the championship, if Page helped Cage, then Cage would give Page a shot at the AEW World Championship, and that did not happen. The attack was thwarted. You had Darby out there, just a whole brawl that broke out, so it was complete fucking chaos. Jay White, breaking up the attempted cash-in. So Jay White might be next in line for a shot at the AEW World Championship coming off his 2 straight wins over Adam Page. I think Jay White and Jon Moxley is a really good match to do for the World's End pay-per-view. I don't think Jay White's winning, obviously, but that's a good spot for him to be in. And then you also have the chaos that closed the show with Darby Allin attempting to kill the Death Riders in the car, which apparently was a stunt he did himself, which was just stupid, but what else is new? I wasn't a fan of the finish of the show. I thought it was kind of underwhelming. They had a lot going on, granted, but it felt like the ending of a Dynamite and less of a pay-per-view, if that makes sense. And that's just me not really feeling the whole Death Riders storyline. It's just been one fucking bust for me so far. One giant bust. I just do not care. They're trying with it. They're doing something different, I guess. None of it has been overly interesting or intriguing to me at all. But it's certainly a storyline, if nothing else. As far as the Continental Classic is concerned, it did kick off on Wednesday's Dynamite. I am recording this before Dynamite, so I don't know what the results of those matches are, if anyone's replaced or anything. There was the belief that Speedball Mike Bailey from TNA might be in the Continental Classic. He's done in TNA, but then I saw an additional report after I recorded last week that indicated his deal isn't actually up until the end of the year, which isn't only like a month, but he is done with TNA and they're not using him again until he's, out of the company. So they had Trent Seven turn on him, and I guess that was the last appearance that he's going to make in TNA. So he's not ready to debut in AEW quite yet, which is why he's not in the Continental Classic. But they do have a great lineup of people, though, in this tournament. In the Gold League, we've got Darby Allin, Claudio Castagnoli, Will Ospreay, Ricochet, Brody King, and Juice Robinson. And in the Blue League, we have Kazuchika Okada, the reigning defending Continental Champion, Kyle Fletcher, Daniel Garcia, Mark Briscoe, Shelton Benjamin, and the Beast Mortos. Now, from an in-ring standpoint, this will be a great tournament. A lot of great wrestlers here. A lot of great matches to be had with Okada and Benjamin, Will Ospreay and Claudio, which we've seen before, I believe. But, Ospreay and Ricochet again. Okada and Garcia, which I believe happened on Dynamite last night on Wednesday. Fletcher and Okada. A lot of great matches to be had here. My issue, a lot like last year, the negative of this tournament, is that there's a lot of fucking mid-carders that are not going to win this thing. I can guarantee you right now, Brody King is not winning. Juice Robinson is not winning. Darby Allin could win. I'm not really sure why Allin would be in this thing. I mean, I guess they're not going to have him in the world title picture for a while, so I guess that's why. I mean, Allin being in it, Castagnoli isn't really like a top-tier talent, I mean, in terms of the way he's portrayed, but, in the ring he is, so I guess I understand why he'd be in it. Ospreay is perfect. Ricochet makes sense. So I like the Gold League more than the Blue League. Shelton Benjamin is not fucking winning. The Beast Mortos is not fucking winning. Mark Briscoe, again, who I think may have won one match last year, is not fucking winning. And Garcia, who just won the TNT title, is also probably not winning. So I think we're looking at a final of Fletcher and Ospreay, like I said earlier during my Full Gear review. And that's fine. I could see Ospreay winning the championship. Okay. I mean, I don't give a shit about the Continental Championship. Maybe that could then set up an Ospreay-Okada match, because Okada didn't make it to the finals. Or they could do Ospreay and Okada in the finals. That would be fine, too. As far as who wins the overall thing, I think we're looking at Will Ospreay. Okada could win the whole thing and retain the title, but that's not really interesting. I think it's going to be Will Ospreay as your new AEW Continental Champion by the end of this, coming up at World's End. But we shall soon see. As the Continental Classic plays out, I'll give my thoughts most likely in the weeks to come as they play out on Dynamite, and give my ultimate prediction for who's going to win the whole thing as we get closer to World's End next month.